Go With Your Palate, episode number J-Lo.
J-Lo.
And now we're going to wet your palate with what we talked about. So we got a special guest, John Lopez, director of winemaking. We've been working together for a couple decades. Really happy to have you. He's told us his life story, where he came from, where he's at.
Where I'm going.
Where are you going?
I don't know.
We'll talk about when they went to Argentina.
Yeah,
we went to Argentina. We got to go back to
2024 harvest. That's where I'm going.
We got to go to the box.
They're going to the box.
It.
New York.
New York.
Yeah, we got to talk about some of the winemaking shit we've developed over time, building of crews and teams.
And it looks like, hey, you could be a criminal justice major, get that degree, and then you get into winemaking.
You can grill quesadillas the wrong way, and then we can do that as well.
Or the right
I'm not going to let you live that down.
Okay, we're going to talk about that. Actually, I want to know what people think about that.
And then get to hear our little challenge from Chris, the rapid fire beverage and food pairings.
Dude,
sometime in this thing. So
I loved your guys' answers too. You guys actually do know what you're talking about.
Really?
More or less.
Yeah, I thought you were bullshitting the whole time.
Rosé all day. We're starting off with the ODP.
So
cheers.
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 All right.
Yeah. So we can actually drink this because normally it's tastings.
Yeah. No, we're drinking today, not tasting.
Good. I like it.
So we got a special guest today. The one and only, the original J-Lo, John Lopez. Director of winemaking here at Copper Cane. We got a long history. We're going to get into some of that shit. Yep. Have a little bit of fun. Hear some stories. I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. He doesn't know what's going to come out of mine.
Oh, I love it.
But I do know that it's going to be entertaining. And you might learn a little thing or two about wine and how you can get into this business in many different ways. And just, take a different approach.
Yeah, and how to have a little fun while you're going through the journey. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
well, here we go. So this is Go With Your Palate, episode number, I don't know. Where you got
Neither do
I don't know.
your host,
It's
Joe.
the J-Lo episode.
It's the J-Lo episode. Yeah, we don't even need a number on this.
No.
This is J-Lo.
J-Lo one.
Yeah.
Number one. Here we go.
We got to start naming our podcast episodes like Elon Musk names his children. All right. So I'm Joe Wagner, and we got Chris Fat Mario Rubio here, and again, special guest John Lopez.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
We're gonna just jump into this, man. We're gonna.
That's all right, John.
See, I got a response. You don't have that. You don't have that. We need to get that.
I love you, John. Oh my God.
Your autograph.
Take your shirt off.
Okay. Much better.
Papa Chulo.
Poppy, not Papa.
Poppy.
Poppy.
Oh, shit.
We'll talk about your Spanish later.
I know, dude. Half Mexican.
No,
Wait
dude,
till-
you're
wait
not
till-
even. You're not even half Mexican.
Oh, God.
God.
Can we not?
Quarter.
Can we? Okay.
Quarter-
Anyways, let's
Quarter
get-
tortilla.
Dreamer. So well, we could just jump into it. I mean, John, first, I think it's best for people to hear your story of just your upbringing, because you had very humble roots, and your family was involved in vineyard management and the vineyards here in Napa Valley, and just maybe give us a quick kind of 0 through 18, and then where you thought your life was going to go, and then how the fuck did you end up making wine?
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to try to keep it short because I can keep talking about this. My mom and dad, Maria Lopez and Gabino Lopez, came to U.S. of A. Around, they were probably 16, 17 years old, maybe a little younger. As things evolved, they landed in the Napa Valley and began to, build their careers and kind of put their roots down in this valley. So my dad started working with Joe's grandfather. We call him Mr. Charlie Wagner. As he started in the business, kind of fell in love with it, had worked all along the valley, had a good stint with Mr. Wagner, and then ended up finishing his career with your dad, Chuck Wagner.
Yeah.
Last 10 years of his career. So my parents would always ask me, I was going to Sacramento State. Again, I grew up in the valley. I grew up what is now Nickel and Nickel Ranch. So we grew up in the little white house right across Mondavi.
Right next to their horse stable or horse field, right?
Yes, we had horses there.
Yeah.
My grandmother lived where their tasting room is built now, and we would have the little red wagon, and we'd take grapes, the second pick, over to the Mondavis, and we'd get back then $2 or $3 was a lot. So we were right there, Staple, Highway 29, not knowing what the Napa Valley was going to be. As my parents pushed the kids to go off to college or, pick your adventure. And so we decided I went to Sacramento State, got my degree in criminal justice, and decided I was excelling in my career, graduated in 91, worked at the probation department in Napa County, and was one of the younger supervisors moving forward and elevating my career. My parents were working with Chuck Wagner, your dad, and Chuck had built a nice little house for my parents, so I'd visit, and my parents would always remind me, you grew up here, you should learn a little bit about your roots, you're around vineyards all the time, you grew up on this ranch, and you have this great family. Why don't you come and take some time and get to know wine? And I said, okay. So I took a leave of absence, and I met Chuck, and it was a handshake. He said, we may like you or we may not. So this is how we work here. You're more than welcome to work here for a couple weeks or a month. And to size it up and put it in a nutshell, I fell in love with working at the winery. Everything came very natural to me. People would ask me, what varietal, what barrel does this come from? And I could name everything off. What part of California is this Chardonnay from? It didn't seem very difficult to me. And I had a mentor, John Bolta, that, said, that's not very easy to do, and this and that. So I took a leap of faith. I loved what I used to do. I believe everything you do preps you for where you're going to end up at. So I took a leave of absence from my job, and I decided to start working at Caymus. Just out of the blue, started working with the cellar crew, who 26 years later, I still work with half the guys that groomed me at Caymus and that kind of showed me the path. And now I am the director of winemaking for Joe. I skipped a big middle part of it, but I think we'll talk through it as we get there. But it was a natural progression that I didn't know that I had a passion for, that I landed in. I ended up resigning from my profession, working for the Napa County Probation. My degree was in criminal justice that I graduated in. And now it's 26 years working with Chuck Wagner, Joe Wagner, creating all sorts of different brands from Belglass, Maomi, Quilt. And I want to give a special thanks to Joe's dad, Chuck Wagner, because he has a very unique way of understanding talent. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to have all these credentials and all these trophies to make you like that guy. He could look at individuals, and he's, done that through the years. And he gave me a shot, and I took it, and here we are. And I had the ability to cross paths with Joe while I was working with his dad.
Well, I'd say like work ethic is one of the most important things. But then you also had, I think, a special skill that was kind of missing and kind of is missing in many cellars. You dealt with some difficult people in your previous career, right?
Yeah.
And so seeing you kind of starting off and then rising up through the ranks and helping build this team that we have today, and I look back on kind of like how you manage your relationship with people, how you grow these people up, and probably not too dissimilar from, I'm not saying we have like a bunch of bad boys. I mean, we've had our cholos and gangsters and shit.
We
Yeah.
got some cowboys.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so and they've all matured. They've all become like big parts of what we're doing. But I think John's guidance through that, like teaching them, like, hey, this is just the right way to be as a human, and like a coach, not just a boss, but also a coach. I think you've done a great job with that, and I think that's something that was not necessarily found in many cellars. I think it's like just
Right.
there's a a level of wildness, and if you don't control it, because that wildness is just people with passion, right? But it's misguided passion at times. So how do you get that passion to be guided in the right direction? And that's how the crew has been built. And I think that's a testament to John and his past and what he brought to the table, and then keeping an open mind about doing shit, fucking stuff up, trying new things, and and here we are today. But I gotta talk a little bit about when we first kind of started, gelling together. We're just Belglass. We were kind of like, in no man's land. We didn't really have a place within the winery at the time. you were working with John Bolta predominantly,
Right.
and then all of a sudden it was just like we started to see that the Pinot Noir category was starting to catch on, and people liked it, and just like naturally, I don't know really how it happened, but naturally, like you and then part of the crew started working more on Pinot Noir than they were on white wines, and then we just started pushing the limits and then bringing more shit in and whatever else. And the other, another thing I want to touch on was, let me get that done first. So as we started working closer together, like, I don't know, what was that, early 2000s?
Yeah.
And I remember it was like one harvest and, late nights and whatever. And so we're like, hey, we got to go get a bite. And we go to the grill. We sit at the bar, the Rutherford Grill, like staple for us still to
We
this
used
day.
to do it. Yeah.
So go there.
Cafeteria.
That's our cafeteria. It's a fucking expensive cafeteria.
But that French dip.
There's no $2 menu there.
Best French dip though in the U.S. I've had.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and we're like, yeah, let's grab a beer, get some dinner, and we just start bullshitting like, oh shit, we're like pretty fucking similar. Yeah. And then that became like just the beginning of a friendship we had. Now we'll get into some stories and shit at some point, but it's also kind of the family element, right? Where your dad started with my grandfather, and then started working with my dad after my grandfather retired, and then your brother Alex is still working with my dad, so he started kind of underneath your dad working in vineyard management. And now he's overseeing vineyard management for the Wagner family of wines. And it's just cool to see these multi-generational things happen because there are, like you said, you're tied to the roots here. You grew up here, and you may have a curiosity about it, and then finally you get into it, and you're like, oh, fuck. I like this.
Yeah.
This is cool. It's a little loose. I mean, I think you probably work a lot more hours in this industry than you would in a typical day job, but I think it's very rewarding.
Yeah. No, and that being said, you have to enjoy people. You have to enjoy working hard. And I found a place where everybody has the same mentality. We all want to climb the mountain. We all want to work hard. We want to be the best at what we do. We try to make it look like it's easy on the outside. People go, oh, like, what are you doing? I'm all, no, not much, just this and that. But we have a bunch of soldiers that climb the mountain, and a credit to Joe that allows us to be a little bit special when we have to be special. And, he kind of lets us go a little bit. And it's real important because if you ask people to climb the top of the mountain, you got to let him fly a little bit, and then you got to know when to bring him in. And he's given me that responsibility, and I appreciate it. So it's enjoyable. I get up every day, and people ask me, "You've been doing it for a long time. You've seen a lot of growth. There's a lot going on." I still enjoy it. I get up in the morning, and I'm always thinking about exciting things that we're going to do at the winery every day. And that's just not a cliche thing to say. You have to feel this way about your job, especially working for Copper Cane. You have to be excited. It starts from the top and it goes down to the last guy. Very passionate.
Well, I think that, our wine style has evolved so much in the last 20-something years. And that's also, I think, that, that if you want to call it the freedom to do what you want, it's not this box that we live in at Copper Cane. It's kind of like you give everybody the opportunity to try things that they believe in, and knowing that they might screw it up. And if they screw it up, you don't go to them and get pissed off. You're like, hey, well, we learned. We're not going to do that again. Yeah. But if you make progress, then you make progress with the wines, and you carry that forward, and that continues to drive the evolution. But what I've seen most recently is, as we really feel, I think, great about our production and ideologies about making red wines, you've really amped up the game on the white wine side. We were just tasting some Chardonnays yesterday, and it's just it's better than the competition. I don't mean to be cocky, but I didn't do that really. That was John. John's fucking crushing the Chardonnay game now, and the Sauv Blanc game, and continuing on with the Cabs and Pinots. But you have evolved the white side of our business. Even though you're Mexican, you've evolved the way.
I started with the whites. I always tell you, Joe, it's always the whites.
You did start your career with whites.
Yeah, I did.
That's right. Fucking working on Conundrum.
Conundrum, man. How that was the school. That's how you go to school. Imagine you can't go to Davis or whatever schools teach winemaking. You get to bring in white grapes from Santa Barbara to Sonoma. Every Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Semillon, and you get to learn about the whole state in making this great wine Conundrum. I mean, where do you go to school to learn all the pockets, how you pick soils and the way vines are planted and everything? So I started in white, and I very prideful in making sure white wine is at top level when we make it. And so, so it's very exciting. I did start with white
Well,
wine.
I mean, I could do a couple highlights on just the last couple of years in white wines, where like Chardonnay went from more of a standard production process that we had envisioned to John experimenting with native ferments. And I was never really a big believer in native ferments because usually our alcohol is so high, so we want to have a controlled yeast strain, especially in reds, that are going to deliver what we want. So going a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter acidity, lower alcohol, native ferments, a mix of new and used barrels that it's fermenting in and aging in, extended time on lees, all that, and even a Sauv Blanc, like seeing how that thing's evolved. Like now we got these cigar-shaped barrels, and those are performing amazingly well. And trying all these different things with fermentation, yeast, and barrel aging, and I think it's just upped our game. Like if you taste our Chards from 5 years ago, taste them today, it's just like a world of a difference, and they're amazing wines.
Hell yeah! And I think what a crazy one to start with Conundrum.
Yeah, no,
because that was. I mean, because I remember though too, there was such a mystery to that wine, right? They were never. Everyone always kind of wanted to know what's the blend percentages, what's going on in that, because there was, like you were mentioning, but wasn't there like 5 varietals you were using or working with that?
You know what? To this day,
you still
I
have
only talk about.
Dude, I tried, Joe.
I was brought up by Chuck Wagner, so Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and some Muscat. How's that?
Okay, that was good. We got.
And
There were some other whites. There was some other stuff in there.
Little Chenin Blanc,
Viognier.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get some secrets out there.
No, I was built a certain way, and
But hey, it evolved so much. Also, it started off with, a very, I mean, what I remember of it at least. I actually don't know where it's at right now as far as what the breakdown is. But it was fairly concise. But you were really blending for a style. Like you were trying to say like, all right, the 2002 vintage was like this. Now how do we blend to make the 23 more seamless going from one vintage to the other?
It was a great wine. I started in 1998 at Caymus, and I remember we were finishing off 1997 Conundrum being bottled, and all I remember is for the first time opening the lids to the tanks and getting these beautiful floral and complex aromas that a raw wine like Conundrum can bring out. And I was like, wow, how do you do that? How do you? And that's kind of where I got all excited about white wine and kind of started my career with that path with Conundrum and just kind of went along.
And obviously, I mean, do you guys want to talk about the first time you guys met, or is that like was?
I was probably a fucking kid. I was I mean, I bet I was. Well, I think I probably met you when you were probably over at your parents' place when I was like literally a kid, like maybe like 10.
Yeah. No, my dad would tell me stories in particular about Joe Wagner. I mean, there was Charlie Wagner and Joe Wagner. And
Charlie, my brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So my dad was very meticulous about equipment and keeping things very tidy. And I don't know if I've shared this with Joe, but my mom would be embarrassed because Joe would go and ask for the keys for the quads that my dad used for spraying or whatever. And he's like, oh boy, I'm going to give the keys to Joe Wagner. And finally he had to give them up, but he was a little reluctant. And Joe and his brother would go in the creek and do these big old mounds, and they would try not to clear the mound, they'd try to clear each other. So Charlie would sit in the middle and they'd video it and then jump like 30 feet airborne and do that whole bit. So I knew Joe as I would visit my parents from when I was finishing up college and then working at a probation department. It was kind of high and by, but it all evolved when Joe started the brand Maomi, and he started Clark and Telephone. He's being very modest. The way the crews crossed and started working with him is Joe actually tried to handle all the vineyards at harvest, bring the grapes in, and actually try to do all the punch downs and open tops and bins. And he had an array. It normally would take a crew of 4 or 5 to do what he was trying to do. So he'd come in at night and do the punch downs. He'd come in the morning and do the punch downs. So he was trying to do it all to not be disruptive.
Yeah.
So we naturally flowed. And I go, Joe, we got this. He goes, okay, I'm going to go out and check some vineyards. And he would be out there for 3 or 4 days, kind of looking, scouting out vineyards. So we started moving the white wine crew over to assist Joe with all these tanks. I mean, we're talking 10 tons, 20 tons, 30 tons. And he was trying to do it all. And we all worked till 11 at night. And, we'd catch a cigar at night. And
cigar, have some Tecate.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun, but he was trying to do it all. And that's kind of how it evolved, that we just started assisting informally. There was never a formal, John, you will be working with me or this or that, or John, you will be helping with the wine. It was a family transition, which I love this. That's a part of the story I love is there's no meetings. He knows I don't like a lot of meetings. They're important. I'm all, not another meeting, really? Let's get to work. But that's a whole different story. But it's, working with Caymus and the transition to copper cane, it's just a natural progression of a family environment. You don't even have to say anything. You just help and you go do. And that's how the guys worked. And we meld together. And that's my best story is like people go, did he have a meeting with you? And I go, no, he needed help. We worked and I got to know him better and better.
Yeah.
And we just kept working. And then there was a really good, a winemaking. He became my boss, but it was a friendship. But he is my boss. So, we kind of built that relationship. So that's the best part. It was seamless. It just happened.
It does. And that's I think that's how we prefer it to happen.
Yeah.
And it still, still does. I mean, as we've grown, we have more meetings. Not a fan of them either, but hey,
you have to do them. I get it.
We got to do them.
We got to do them.
But no, I do think that seamless nature, and it still continues on where, you'll see kind of a little bit of movement where people are excelling and they, it's not like big announcement, this guy's moving up, whatever. It's like, yeah, you've earned this. You worked your ass off. You're moving up the ranks, you're doing whatever, and you're a bigger part of this organization, and that motivates everybody else as well. They see this upward movement. They see their abilities expand, their repertoire of tools and everything that they can use. So, we're creating the next generation of winemakers in many cases.
Right.
Yeah.
Like John said earlier, I don't give a shit if you go to Davis or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're out there working like with us and challenging yourself, challenging whatever practices we're doing, then you're going to become a winemaker someday.
Yeah. There's so much to learn, and we have all the tools at Copper Cane that you can learn as much. I speak to some people and they sound stagnant. They sound, well, this is how the barrel works, or this is how fermentations work, and this and that. But just the growth and the constant pushing the envelope on entities that seem capped out, but they're not. It just keeps it exciting. So it's that's the way it's supposed to be. So,
and I think that also, I mean, you guys talk a lot about. I hear like a lot of heart, a lot of family, and just being in the trenches together. Creating that bond, but also the learning really comes from the doing and actually getting your hands dirty. But also, like, we're talking about starting at Caymus and then going to Copper Cane. I always think it was interesting too. I brought this to Joe, is that like we know how Napa Valley is, right? Like they love like the little drama and the gossip. They always like to create these stories. They're like, oh no, like Joe's starting Copper Cane, coming over to Caymus, like him and his dad got this riff, and like, so I think it's like funny to say it's actually like it's family bond, and it's like people are happy for each other and their journey and promote that because everyone's working hard. But I do think it was a funny story because if you might say, but like when it came time for you to start Copper Cane or whatever, and you were like, okay, maybe John, I'd like you to come with me.
Yeah.
Did John say, well, you got to talk to your dad?
Yeah.
I don't want to take the story with
no. It's I remember clearly Joe. He would skateboard from Lorna Bell Gloss's house, and Mr. Charlie and Lorna Bell Gloss. Joe had his office in her garage. Yeah. So sometimes I can hear the click, click, click. He rarely fell off the skateboard. He was very good. He's a snowboarder, skateboarder. There was one time he fell, but that's, again, a different
story. There was more than
story.
one time.
Yeah. But I could hear the click, click coming over, and when he was talking to me about, I have these I'd like to expand, and I like to do these really cool things, and I'd like to ask if you're interested. And I wanted to make it very clear to him that he goes, talk it over with your family. This is a big thing. You have Caymus is a stable, and you can just continue doing what you do. And I said, nope. I just want you to know that I would like to continue, learning and growing in the wine business with Joe Wagner. That night, it was around 9:30, 10 at night. I was working and he was working in his office, and we usually meet at the board or do a recap and have a little wine or whatever the case. But nope, I said, nope, I'm in. We're doing it. You talk to your dad, and we're all good. But it was really important for me to know that I don't have to think about things. I'm a very spontaneous guy, and I think it's important. I said, nope, I'm in. He goes, no, take your time. I go, no, really important, I'm in. Let's go. Let's do this. And I chose it because I do like a little bit of instability at time. I think we're built with an edge where I don't like to get too comfortable. Yeah. Caymus is such a success, and their foundation is incredible, and what they do is off the charts. I mean, they grew me, but I just wanted to climb the mountain a little, and he made me a big part of that. So I said, yeah, I want to climb the mountain. Let's go. Let's go. So I was excited. And
your new leader rolls in on a longboard.
Yeah,
and you both just ride in on a longboard into the sunset, maybe?
No, so I was really excited about it. I was re-energized, not in a bad way. My great years at Caymus, 17 years, and then being exposed to their family. I mean, who gets that? Getting to know Lorna and Connie and Mr. Charlie Wagner, coming out and he always had get his dehydrator because he saved a few prune trees, right?
Yeah.
That he wanted to do that were on the property originally. So just it's a story on top of a story. And looking back now, I'm barely starting to absorb how cool this is. And, we got Dominic working today.
Dominic's in work now, so he's going to work through harvest.
Joe's son, middle son, he's 15,
number 4.
15, 16-year-old.
Almost 16.
He's out there with the crew right now, and that's how it starts. That's the evolution. It's like, he's working, he's learning the business. And
well, then you got 2 boys, and there may be a time where they're, going to college. You got one that's just started, right? Yep. And then one that is
going to graduating
this year.
Yes.
This is the last year in college.
JT at Arizona State, and then
and then one at ASU.
At ASU, and Jace, the 18-year-old at Arizona. So they're rivals, and
I think it's hilarious. They both went to Arizona, but to different schools.
Yeah.
And I totally get it, because one of my kids is like looking at those are his top 2 choices. I'm like, I got a sales trip going down to Phoenix, I think in the next 2 months or so, and I'm like, why don't you come down with me, do the sales trip? I'll pull you out of your senior year for a week. And we've done that with some of the kids, and they love seeing different parts. Some of them have worked in the winery and worked in the vineyard and everything. Yeah. But your kids may want to come back and be like, you know what? After I graduate, maybe I'll just want to work in the wine business for
we have not ruled that out.
6 months. And if they want to, the doors are open. It's all just about get in there, learn, work, and if you love it and you have a passion for it, it's gonna stick.
Yeah. And
you're gonna work your ass off. That's like what I'm telling my kids right now. I'm like, if you're going to work in this during harvest, it's not 5 days a week and 8-10 hours a day. This is 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 6 days a week minimum. You got to be grinding.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, you're going to get double time, overtime, whatever. You're going to be so busy, you have no idea that the time has flown by, and your bank check, your checks are going to be really healthy looking. Yeah. And you're going to be that much more motivated. Because when you're 18, 19 years old,
I think working for Copper Cane, it's a unique thing. It's, I think we have been able to maintain the family environment in winemaking. Mm-hmm. A credit to Joe and his philosophy on, the way you work and create great wines. But the ability to work, your day goes by. No one's looking at the clock. No one is saying I need more hours for overtime. Everybody just works. And I think these types of environments have been squashed. They're minimal. They're very corporate. and
clock out at 8
clock
hours,
out and
no
this and that.
overtime.
There is a place for organization and corporateness, and that balance has to exist, but we still maintain a real family environment that at Harvest we get a line of people that want to work for us.
I don't think people even look at it like a 10-hour day is
normal.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where a 40-hour week came from, but that's bullshit.
Yes.
That's
That's not
pansy hours.
Yeah.
There's like some true farmers right
Oh my
there.
God.
And now they're trying to pull it down to 36 hours or some shit. Is that I'm like really?
I think with
What are we going
corporate,
to turn into fucking France and be a bunch of pieces of that don't get their job done?
now here we go.
Are you seeing if Art's awake? He's awake. He's like, all right, now we're in. No, but I was gonna say, I think with corporate life too, there's a lot of people that are in the corporate life, but they have it's coined like their side hustle. They're not in it. They're there to like make some money, but their mind is somewhere else. It's really on their passion that's outside of that work, outside of that job, and they're just waiting for that to blow up. And the cool thing about this industry and with the world that you've created, I believe, at Copper Cane is that you have people that's like, this is what we do. This is actually, we are doing what we want to do, which kind of shows, I think, the hard work, the drive, the overtimes, like no one looking at the clock, like all that stuff comes from because their heart is in it. Like there is no real like side hustle.
On the vineyard management side and the winemaking side in particular in this industry, I look at those as like in many cases they facilitate the need for a hobby. So you see like if you're an accountant, right? You probably are into you have some side thing. You're a woodworker. You're whatever it might be. You've got a hobby, but like in this career, you typically look at people and you say like, do you have a hobby? And most people are like, no. Like my job is my hobby. Like I put all my creative influence into what I do every day, and that kind of that facilitates that need that your brain has to keep that activation going.
Right.
And so I think that's one of the unique things about the wine industry, but especially pertaining to vineyard and winemaking.
And another point on that is you can't take the drive away from people, and that's what's happening. I don't want to get too political, but there's a lot of people that have come to this country, especially Napa Valley, and people want to work. They have this drive, and we have that core. We have those people that work for us. But that's the beauty of it. We do not take their drive away. There's not a lot of companies, and Joe empowers me to have these crews that are amazing. I know every individual, every name on my crew, and I love dealing with people. That drive that people come with, we can't squash it. And a lot of companies have squashed that drive. My point is, we have people that have that drive, and it doesn't get suppressed.
And the passion too, because like I think like if you go walk around the winery, right, it's like sometimes you'll hear like if you want me to say like the communication between say Polly and J-Lo or whatever, which sounds like it is. I mean, there's a lot of cussing going on in Spanish, and they'll be getting heated, right? You talked about that.
I don't know if you want anybody on your HR team that speaks Spanish walking around the winery. That's but that's also part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
And but that culture trickles down. If you look at employee generations, like that's not 20, 30 years. You're talking there might be 50-year-old, 40-year-old, 30-year-old, 30-year-olds are training the 20-year-olds and whatever else, and those generations are getting a fill of that culture. And some people don't like it.
No.
And they're called out pretty quickly, or they just leave. And there are some bad seeds. We all have those in any walk of life, but generally speaking, like you can vet it out quick and see who's driven, who wants to be there, who has a passion behind it, and then just let them go with guidance. And if they're willing to ask questions, I think that's another big thing. Yeah, you got to be willing to ask questions.
Yeah, and we don't.
There's a lot of nuance, and if you
at
don't
Harvest, we don't get rid of people. They leave.
Yeah,
I tell them, you're working here. This isn't like you stand at one place and everybody's involved. You're working, and so very rarely do we say you got to go. Once in a while, but people just don't show up. And we asked, what happened to him? He said, this is a lot of work. And everybody, like, they're working and they're moving. And I said, yeah. And so it's kind of a prideful thing, It's
And so you, outside of, because I do want to get into this, outside of winemaking, you've participated in a number of sales trips.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to start by asking, if you had your druthers, your choice, how many weeks a year would you be out in a market? Like, do you get bored of that part of it?
No.
Like,
no.
is it if you said like over the course of 12 months, 6 weeks works, 4 weeks would be good, whatever.
So for me, about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
When I'm on the market, I just exhaust myself. I enjoy people. I get really passionate about talking about the wines, and it's exhausting. It's a personal touch that I enjoy, so I can't just wing it. I don't just wing things, or you don't go out there. So 4 to 6 weeks for me, because I'm exhausted, and
it's a grind. Like, it's not. It
so-
doesn't have the physical demands of
Yeah.
like the cellar and winemaking, but
Right.
man, like by the end of if you spend a whole week, like get in town Sunday, leave on Saturday, you got 5 days of hitting the ground, and like to your point, I mean, we've traveled together before, and it's like you're up early, get your shit done, nonstop meetings because you don't want to waste time. You're gonna have fun during the day and night,
Absolutely.
no matter what. But you try to just fill it all with business oriented elements. But no, the people, like our sales team, our distributors, they love when you're out in the market. What do they call you, Manhattan John?
Manhattan Johnny.
Manhattan Johnny. Left an indelible mark in Manhattan, which isn't easy to do, even if you're Vladimir Putin.
No, New York, Chicago, my top 2 favorite places. And again, I work with great people out there. Alexandria, Cali.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. And we go to really unique places where our placements are great, or we need to get wine out. And they love the stories, especially the big cities. I don't consider myself like a farmer, but I did grow up on a farm, and I did, drive tractors and this and that. And I just thought that's what people do when you grow out here. That's what you do. But it's become even more intriguing, and I enjoy it more. Traveling, and I'm not used to talking about myself. Joe goes, "No, you got to tell them the story and this." And now I'm finally a little more comfortable understanding why it's important for them to hear the story. So it's pretty cool going into the big cities.
You can tell all the stats about a wine day in and day out, and it's boring as fuck.
Yeah.
Like for me. So then you make it a little more personal. Everybody wants to connect on a different level, and then you get to go into deeper detail. But like Manhattan, we've had some fun there. I don't even know why we went the last time. We stayed at the Baccarat Hotel.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
That place is amazing.
Oh my gosh!
It was
It's a nice hotel.
not really bragging, but it was fairly swanky, and they had
Fairly swanky. Yeah.
They had
Did
just-
you guys do tea time?
No, fuck no.
no.
Okay,
They
don't
had-
say that until you've tried it.
They had just
If
kicked
you have
out.
baccarat like tea time, it's different.
Baccarat has a tea time.
Oh hell yeah! It's the tray of just like your little sandwiches and little pastries and little cookies and chocolates, and so you just got this whole, me with poo-poo platters, right?
Yeah.
So you get all that food, and like their tea is exquisite, but dude, you can also do it like anyone else like usually does it. Is like they're like, okay, pop bottles of champagne, and so then you're just there sparkling. You're like, what? You start at like 11.
Yeah.
And you finish at like 4, and then you're just ready to go out.
When
Dude,
we
town,
got
I
there,
don't
they
know.
were rolling Drake out because I guess he had a big concert out there. And
Oh, he was there?
He destroyed the room, so he got kicked out.
Yeah.
He destroyed the
Giving us
room.
some
Him and his
intel?
entourage
There's people that
destroyed
does
the
it, They
room.
destroy the room. They
I'm
destroy
serious,
the
Dude, then you
rooms.
go to the bar. That's like the best bar in Manhattan, I think.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And then like the people watching.
Yeah.
Like it's great, but the drinks
Yeah.
are awesome. The glassware obviously baccarat, so you feel like you're
Yeah.
drinking $1 million cocktail.
We can go from that
That's
to what's our little cart there?
The halal guys, the fucking halal
yeah.
guys. It's
Yeah.
like you get your drinks at the
Yes.
fancy place. You go down the street and get your street food, man. The halal guys is like the OG, fucking just
me hungry.
yeah, man. And you just sit there, nice buzz or just heavily intoxicated.
Yeah.
Sit on a street corner. My mouth is watering now
I
thinking
know,
about
dude.
it.
Can we just go to New
Yeah.
York already?
And the point being is we can have fun anywhere. We've gone to speakeasies.
Oh yeah, I've heard about those.
about
Wait, there's a place, the
7 years-
box.
Oh, you want to talk about the box?
I
will.
do, because I'm still waiting
Okay.
to go. All I've heard is
You
stories
don't
about
want to go to the
box.
box. If anybody is curious
been?
about the box,
I've been to the box.
J-Lo's been to the
Yeah,
box
I've been to the
too.
box.
Dude, I had no idea what we were getting into.
You
This is
said-
all on
I
Alex,
put the
okay?
art-
Alex crushes it in Manhattan and New York for us. Awesome saleswoman, and she's got just a bright fire. Like always on the go, always
she's
wants to hustle.
fucking kick ass.
And And so she's like, we're going to bring you to this place called The Box. We're like, all right. She's like, don't look it up online. Just you're coming. So we all go. It's like me, John, Rachel, and then I think her boyfriend and maybe a couple guys from the distributor.
Yeah.
And so we get a table there, and it's like a full on circus.
Circus.
Yes.
But
Here,
it's
Dark
but
just
a-
brought it up on screen, some pictures.
but a raunchy
boy.
circus. And the funniest part was there's like some girl doing a bathtub show, and she's all butt naked. She's herself with the end of a brush, like a scrub brush.
yeah, we're doing this.
Okay, we're doing it.
We got all
We're doing
quiet.
In front, she fucking squirts on the crowd.
Wow.
Yeah,
Looks like the end. Have our heroes ever been in a nastier spot? Find out next week.